I'm going to put the lifters in, or they call them tappets. I'm going to put a little assembly lube on them. Don't want them running dry on the cam. Even though there's some oil down there, it's, you know, doesn't hurt. You make sure you put them back in the same spot they came out of. I have these numbered. You don't want to mix them up after they've been used. So I have a factory gasket this time. You can see it says Mitsubishi on it. And right there it's for a KE70. I don't want to have to do this project again, so we'll see how this works. Next thing I want to do is clean out the threads for the head bones. I vacuumed them out and I blew them out. I'll clean them again, but what I want to do is run a tap in there. It's an M14 by 1.5 millimeter. I'm not re-tapping the threads, I'm just cleaning them. You get more accurate torque reading, get the threads clean. No foreign material give you a bad torque reading. You can see I'm running that tap in and out by hand. I'm not using a tap handle or anything. There's some crap there. And take your time when you first start it. You don't want to cross thread anything, wreck the threads. Few things here. I take the head gasket. Now the factory one is stamped KE70, and according to the manual you put it on with that word facing up, or the KE70 facing up. Alright, that looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and get all the bolts ready to put in and torque the head down. Now, before I put these bolts in, I'm just looking and I realized I hadn't cleaned them yet. They still have some crap in them. So I just take a wire brush, brush all the crap out of the threads. You don't want anything binding up enough to give you a false reading on the torque wrench. And then you might end up with the bolts too loose. And that'll lead to head gasket leaking. Yeah, you can see there's some rust and stuff in it. Just going to clean that up. Yeah, that cleans up pretty good. Put a little oil on the threads on the bolts. That would be the head bolts, of course. You can see the threads are cleaned out. I can screw that clear down in by hand. Now I'm taking it down till it touches and then back it off a little bit, just till I get all the bolts in. Yeah, cleaning the threads on the bolts and cleaning out the tapped holes in the cylinder block, or the engine block, does help to get this all back together. Again, it's important about the torque reading on the torque wrench. Alright. Alright, going to torque up the head bolts. I have the manual that's telling me which sequence to tighten them in. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they say 94 to 101 foot-pounds. So I'm going to set mine for 100. And Have at it. Okay. Okay, next up is the push rods. And I put them in this cardboard and I labeled them rear exhaust, rear intake, front intake, and front exhaust. I'm going to put them back in, and I put them in so that the top is up, so I just take it and put it right in there. Albeit I'm going to wipe them off as I do it. And I'm going to put a drop of assembly lube inside the lifters. Now, I should have done this before I put the head on. Been easier, but I forgot. That's the thing, when you do a job like this, you got to take your time, double check, make sure you're not forgetting anything. When you put this in, make sure you're inside that lifter, tap it. There's a cavity for it. It's like a ball and socket. The end of the push rod is like the ball, and inside of the tappet is the socket, and it does seat in there. And you can feel it, make sure it's in there. Assembly. And I need to torque the rocker arm retaining bolts. And the manual says to tighten them securely. And over in the tightening torque chart, as they call it, they don't really have anything for that. Well, it's not they don't really. They don't have a specific call out for those. What they have down here is standard bolts and nuts. That happens to be, these are 10 millimeter. But they're not standard. They're 7T. They're pretty hard bolt. So number 7 bolt in 10 millimeter can be tightened to 477 to 607 inch-pounds. Like really, up here you did foot-pounds. Down here you have to use inch-pounds? Well, I mean, really, it is an M20, 2,000 inch-pounds. Well, you have to convert that. You divide that by 12. In any event, I'm going to tighten those to, that works out, 600 inch-pounds works out to 50 foot-pounds. You know, I realize why they did inch-pounds clear down from the M5s to the M20s. An M5 class 4 metric bolt, they have it for 26 inch-pounds. That's just a shade over 2 foot-pounds. You know, most foot-pound torque wrenches don't go less than 20, so you'd need an inch-pound. So I think they probably just kept them at inch-pound the whole way down just to keep it one way instead of some inch, some foot. You know, I don't know, but be that as it may. Ooh. 50 foot-pounds. Now that the rocker arm assembly is tight, torqued down, I'm going to adjust the valves. Now the manual says to bring it around to top dead center on the compression stroke, and at that point both valves should be closed, and that's where you adjust it. 14 thousandths clearance, cold. That's exhaust. And that's intake. See the intake's opening. On the front cylinder, number 1, front. Okay, it's closed. Coming up. Right there. Top dead center on the compression stroke. 14 thousandths. Now I don't have a 14 thousandths in my kit here, but I have a 10 and a 4. Just as good. It's got to fit, but it's got to be snug. Can't fall in there because you're working with thousandths of an inch. Do the back one. Alright, it's going to do the exhaust stroke right here. That's the exhaust valve. Intake's opening. That's the intake stroke. It's at bottom, dead bottom, and it should be coming back up. Oh, missed it. Exhaust, intake. Right there. Let's check and see what we have here. Yeah, that's loose. So the valves have an adjuster, which, by the way, you want to make sure you have the push rod in there, inside of it. The adjuster, you use the standard screwdriver, and then there's a nut to lock it once you've made the adjustment. I like to snug the nut a little bit. And then when you tighten it, you want to hold the adjuster so it doesn't turn. It will if you don't hold it. I don't like that. Loosen it. That's a little bit too much there. Alright. And the back one. And that's that. External oil line. And there's two washers. And one goes on either side of this banjo fitting. And that's what helps, that's what seals it, is those two thin metal washers. And that's the oil line for the rocker arms, comes up from the engine block via the oil pump. It comes up through, comes up in here, fills up the tube, and then comes out each hole on top as it rocks back and forth, lubes everything. Now you don't want to go crazy with that thing. There's no specific torque called out for it, but it's hollow because the oil comes through it and then up, up through the tube, through the bolt, and then in. So if you get too carried away, you could break that thing off in a heartbeat. You want it tight, but you don't want to break it. I'm going to stop right there. What I want to do, since I've hooked up the oil line, got everything in, I temporarily hooked the battery up. The injectors are not in yet, so the cylinders are open. What I want to do is crank it over a little bit, make sure I'm getting oil up through that line, filling up this whole tube till it comes out of here. There's a lot of oil to get in there. And I want to make sure it's getting up there. So here we go. Neutral. Oh, there comes some. Oh, geez. There we come. That's getting everything filled up. I won't feel bad starting it now. See some oil on it right there. I'm going to get this plug in the water pump before I forget about it. If you had a thermostat housing, this would have a bypass tube on it, a little fitting for a bypass hose. This tractor doesn't, some of these didn't have that, so it just has a plug. And I just wasted 10 minutes of my life looking for that because I thought I lost it. It was over there. And it was just blending in, sitting on that wooden work stand. That drives me nuts when I do that. Put some Teflon on it. What size is that? 17. Now this is a tapered plug also, just like the one we talked about the other day for the drain for the engine block here. So it acts like a wedge if you're not careful. If you keep tightening and tightening, it will expand that, and if there's a, it could possibly split the new water pump. So you don't want to get too carried away tightening them out. Of course you want them tight, but not too tight, because you could work that work that right in there like a wedge and split it. At least I've heard that. I've never had it happen. And I don't want to have a first time for everything. And pulley on the water pump. And I just wasted 10 minutes of my life looking for this ratchet and extension. Looked all over, and at the last second I kind of see it right there. I look everywhere else. Sometimes well, if I could get paid for all this money and time, that I waste looking for stuff that I misplace. Might be able to buy some new work clothes, I don't know. There we go. Okay. Next thing I've got to do is I'm going to stop for tonight because this was the fan belt that was on it when I got it. And looks a bit glazed, but it's old. I assume. So, with that said, I'm going to stop so I can get a new fan belt tomorrow. And I think I'll lay this ratchet somewhere I won't be able to find it again. What the heck? Just for giggles.